All right. Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Harry Ma. I'm one of the investment managers here at Sharewise, and welcome to another Sharewise webinar. Today, we're joined by AMRRY Rare Earth CEO and Executive Director, Chris Gibbs. So a very good morning to you, Chris, and thanks for being here this morning.
Hey, good morning, Harry. Appreciate the opportunity to join you today.
Of course. Chris will be presenting an update this morning on the business, touching base on ARR's strategic positioning, asset overview, and also their path ahead. So we're very excited for that. Following the presentation, as per usual, we'll have some Q&A time. So as always, we welcome questions from our attendees. So please feel free to participate. The webinar will be recorded as well. So if you can't view the entire live viewing, it'll be available on our YouTube channel, which will be posted shortly after the webinar. So Chris, if you start presenting, you can go ahead and share your screen. We can get right into it. Perfect.
Hey, thank you, Harry, and appreciate the opportunity to join everyone today, and thank you. And there's real momentum building at the moment, particularly in this critical mineral space. And if you've been watching the news, and you would have noticed that the US is moving fast. Just this past week, we saw President Trump come out with a new executive order and making it very clear that the US is doubling down on its efforts to onshore these critical minerals. And so for American Rare Earths, this shift doesn't just align with our strategy, it reinforces it. And it's tailwinds that could actually help fast track our project through to production. So for American Rare Earths, we believe we're in the right place at the right time with the right commodity. And I appreciate the opportunity to share our story. And today I'd like to leave you with really three key messages. One, we're advancing one of the largest rare earth projects in North America. Our flagship project in Wyoming is progressing through state permitting, so we don't need to wait for federal permitting reform, and that's one of the key strategic advantages for us. But we've got a massive 2.3 billion ton resource at this project. This thing is huge, and it's a strategic asset for the United States. Secondly, we're aligned with the US national priorities, and that creates opportunity. This new executive order underscores the urgency of the US to onshore these critical materials. And projects like ours are exactly what the US government is seeking. Thirdly, we're not waiting, we're already executing and we're delivering. 2024 was a great year where we actually delivered on a number of strategic initiatives, and I'll run through that today. And we're on pathway to bring this project into commercial production as early as 2029. And I'll run through this in terms of our project as we get into this. Forward-looking statements for all our viewers. I urge you to please take note. So American Rare Earths, we're on this clear pathway to build America's next major rare earth project. And as I outlined, we've got one of the largest and most significant resources in the United States. Now, the space we're playing in is the magnetic rare earths, and this is neodymium, praseodymium, as well as terbium and dysprosium. And these rare earths are required for our everyday use, from everything that's in our cell phones, through to what's in vehicles, through to what's in wind turbines, through to, if you go down to the hardware store today, anything that's got a battery requires movement. And this is where the NdPr fits in. And it's also crucial for national defense purposes. And so it's a key product for the future. For American Rare Earths, we came out with a robust scoping study, and I'll run through that as part of this presentation. But one of our core strategic advantages is we are on state lands in the United States. We're not dependent on the federal permitting reform, which gives us a pathway to bring this into production. And that's one of our key advantages for this project. And finally, we're not just producing a concentrate, we're actually across the spectrum from mining through to producing a metal oxide to sell into the US markets. So again, we're in the right place at the right time, and I'd like to share a little bit of that story. And back to the higher macro position, though, as outlined by some of these recent executive orders from the Trump administration, this is critical now for the United States. The current supply situation is that for these critical minerals, the majority of these minerals, as we know, are mined, processed, and then producing magnets outside of the United States. And there's currently a single point of failure within the United States, with really MP materials as being the dominant force in the United States when it comes to mining. And where we see ourselves at American Rare Earths is being that solution to the United States. The long-term outlook for neodymium, praseodymium is still bullish, but the requirements for the US is more about onshoring this critical mineral and ensuring that it's there to secure not only the supply chain for economic purposes, but also for national security purposes. As the Trump administration has really been taking on board, this is no longer optional, it's essential for national security and defense purposes. And the recent executive order from Trump last week really underpins this and highlights the strategic importance for the United States. So for American Rare Earths, what do we have? We've got a massive 2.63 billion tonne JORC resource in the heart of the United States, in a great mining jurisdiction in Wyoming, and being on state, predominantly on state lands for what we're progressing here, gives us the ability to bring this into production within, we believe, as early as 2029. From a permitting perspective, we believe we could get this permitted from where we're at today in around 2 years. So we're well positioned and one of the only companies that have this strategic advantage in the United States. So from a strategic positioning perspective, it's about onshoring these materials, and it's about us being located in the heart of the United States. But the piece we'll talk about a little bit later on is the scalability that comes with this. We've got a massive resource, and our intent here is to scale this and bring this into production and to meet the US's needs. And again, we're not just mining, but we're refining. So what we have here is a once in a lifetime generation opportunity to create value and really rebuild the American rare earth supply chain as it relates to neodymium, praseodymium. If I take a look at our assets, Halleck Creek is our flagship project. And you can see in the United States, we've got a number of projects, but the one I really want to talk about is Halleck Creek. This project, it's huge. We've got this 2.6 billion tonne resource. The grade of this resource is average grade of 3,292 parts per million. But what makes it unique is we can get this upgraded by a factor of 10 prior to using any chemicals. So we've recently proved out that we can upgrade this to 3.5 to 4.5% prior to getting into our leach circuit. And that's what really makes this a project key. So it's a game changer, Halleck Creek. It's not in Ukraine, it's not in Greenland, it is in the heart of the United States. And the US government has made it crystal clear that it's putting its weight and support behind domestic supply. And this large deposit, we've barely scratched the surface. Although we're progressing here in terms of on these state lands, what we also have is a wider surface area here that remains unexplored. And so right now, only 16% of the surface area is covered by this JORC resource. So this thing is huge. And we'll talk more about that as to what it relates to regarding the economics. We've got more than enough resource today to meet the needs of the US and also meet the future needs as well for other allied countries. So Halleck Creek. This is a large US domestic scalable rare earth project with a clear pathway to permits. I've talked about the resource, this massive resource, but you can see here where we're located. It's in a great mining jurisdiction in Wyoming. For those that have been to Denver, it is about you go up a major highway about 2.5 hours called the I-25. You take a left and you go for about another 15-20 minutes on another bitumen road. And this project is in a great location. It's got rail close by. It's got people close by in the town of Laramie and the town of Wheatland. There is great infrastructure. There's a power plant in Wheatland. There's a transformer that's right outside this property. And there's also water available. So we've got all the requirements to develop a mining project. And what makes it even better is it's in a state such as Wyoming, which is an outstanding mining jurisdiction, one of the best in the world. The deposit has 26% magnetic rare earths, and that's pretty key. And it's also low in uranium and thorium, which sets this deposit apart. It's open at depth. We've drilled down to 300 meters, and it still keeps going. And it's also open at width. But what makes this unique is that being such a homogeneous deposit, the strip ratio is down 0.3 to 1, which means that nearly every ton of ore we mine goes through the processing facility. So this keeps our costs down, as well as where we're getting this 10 times upgrade factor before getting into leaching, again, really rolls into the overall economics of what makes this project unique. And I've talked about the pathway to permitting, but cannot underscore the importance of us having progressing this on state lands, in that we're fully supportive of what's happening with federal permitting reform in the US. However, we don't need that to move this project forward. We're on state lands and have great support from the state government of Wyoming. And and just on that with the state of Wyoming, I'll talk a little bit later, but part of that support is even proved where we've received a permit for bulk test mining earlier this year. And in the middle of last year also, we received a government grant from the state of Wyoming. Again, great levels of support to move this project forward. The project economics, these were outlined. We've done 2 scoping studies, and we're right now preparing for a pre-feasibility study. And as you can see here, there's 2 scenarios we're looking at within the scoping study. That first scenario for a capex of $456 million, you can see the NPV and the payback of 2.7 years. But what makes this project, what I get excited about for this project is the scalability. And you can see if you double this, you can really start to see where the economics take hold. But let me just put this in perspective. This first scenario is a 3 million tonne per annum scenario over a 20-year mine life. So that's going to be using around 60 million tonnes of ore. We've got a JORC resource here overall of 2.63 billion tonnes. That first scenario is only 2.4% of the overall resource. And that first scenario produces around 1,800 metric tonne of NdPr. In 2024, the Mountain Pass, or the MP Materials miner, only produced around 1,600 metric tonne of NdPr oxide. Now, their goal is to produce 6,500 metric tonne of NdPr oxide, and Linus's goal is to be producing around 10,500 metric tonne. Now, you can see the opportunity here for scalability. We've got a resource here that has the ability and the potential to compete with the MP Materials and the Linuses of the world. particularly with the size and scale of the resource we have here. That's the potential. And that's what I get excited about. So 100% US based from mine to refinery. And as I've outlined, we've received this license to explore, and we're currently moving this forward, and we're looking at plans right now in terms of advancing a demonstration plant. We came out with metallurgical results recently, which showed at production scale level that we can get a 10x upgrade prior to going into the leach circuit. And so we're very keen now to put this demonstration plant in Laramie and to really advance that. And that's something we're working on today, as I outlined in the most recent ASX release that came out with the scoping study. So again, from mine to refinery is our focus. 2024 has been a great year for American Rare Earths, and we've continued to move this project forward at a time when the rare earth market has been challenging, to say the least. From a macro perspective, we've seen a lot of other rare earth companies fall away, and in particular with the what's happened around pricing and the overall concerns in the mining sector period. But we've performed remarkably well. We came out with the initial scoping study last year and an upgrade to the resource. We also came out with the 7.1 million grant from the state of Wyoming. The EXIM Bank have also indicated they're supporting our project with a letter of interest for the full capex for the project. And towards the end of the year, we completed a further drill campaign in preparation for our pre-feasibility study. And as a result, we upgraded our scoping study. And right now we're working on our PFS for the later part of this year. But importantly also, we delivered on this metallurgical test work, which is proved to be extremely valuable for upgrading and prior to going into the leach work. But you can see here that we've had a steady, we've kept, from a shareholder perspective, we've kept fairly steady in a market where our peers have fallen away. Now, going forward, though, I believe we've got the catalyst to really re-rate this company. And it's going to depend, obviously, on us continuing to execute and deliver on what we say. But you can see here where we ticked a number of boxes back in 2024. And right now, our key focus is around delivering on the Halleck Creek pre-feasibility study by the end of this year. And you can see here where we received a license to test pit mine. And so right now, we're also looking at what we can do to rapidly advance this demonstration plant in Laramie. And what we've also secured in Laramie is the land, and we have a relationship with the Western Research Institute, which is based in Laramie, and they've got the permits, they've got the land and the buildings for where we can set up this demonstration plant. So that's currently what we're working on. The other key piece of news is that we did engage the Bank of Montreal, BMO, as our strategic advisors, seeking to bring in a strategic partner at the project level. Just for context, we don't need to do this to move this project forward. However, we believe it's in the best interest of our shareholders to bring in, if we bring in the right strategic partner, it will help de-risk, but will also help us move this project forward in a non-dilutive manner and create additional value for our shareholders. And so right now we're working with BMO. That process has commenced, and we're going through that today. And so look forward to updating the market as things come to hand in regards to that work with BMO. But again, it's also good, what I call validation, particularly when you've got the validation from the state of Wyoming, with our funding, the validation in terms of the EXIM Bank, also the validation of BMO, who are prepared to work with us to bring in the right partner to rapidly advance this project. In summary, folks, I'm super excited with what we've got here at the Halleck Creek Project. we see this as a solution. We see it as a strategic asset for the United States. And in light of this whole macro environment in the United States, and the recent President Trump order has really highlighted the importance of onshoring these materials. And what we have is one of the largest rare earth projects in the heart of the United States, and a clear pathway to production and getting this permitted on state lands. So appreciate the opportunity to share the story and a high-level overview of the presentation. And I think right now, Harry will take some questions.
Perfect. Thank you, Chris. Thanks for the presentation. I think that gave a really great snapshot of the business, the macro perspective on rare earths in the US, and the necessity for right now, obviously, which is a key talking point in the industry, but also the Halleck Creek Project and the strategic roadmap ahead. So fantastic. We'll get some Q&A questions come through in the chat. For our attendees, there should be a Q&A button at the bottom, sorry. I've got some questions prepared myself. Firstly, looking at the economics of the project. So Chris, with the payback period of 2.7 years, how sensitive is this timeline to permitting or construction delays in Wyoming as well?
Well, permitting, Harry, is we're advancing permitting at the state level, which is more predictable than the federal permitting. I know the Trump administration is seeking federal permitting reform, but this is one of the advantages for this project, is that we're advancing at the state level. And what we're targeting is first production in 2029. And just from a state permitting perspective, we're on track for that from a permitting perspective. So that I suppose is one of our key advantages. If we're trying to progress down the federal permitting realm, then the project would be well, the experience has shown that some of these federal projects do take significant time, in fact, up to nearly decades to get approved. And so we're very fortunate.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and with regards to the capex, the study highlights a low-risk capex of $456 million US. How confident are you that the $76 million contingency buffer is sufficient given inflation and supply chain uncertainties?
Harry, we believe this is adequate at this stage, obviously, in terms of the study. And right now, what we're also working on is the pre-feasibility study, which will be coming out the later part of this year. Obviously, some of the risks out there are from an inflationary perspective, from a pricing perspective. And so we obviously just need to monitor those as they go forward. But right now, obviously, we felt that was fairly adequate for where we're at the moment. And but we will be updating this as part of the pre-feasibility study, which is due out at the later part of this year.
Okay. Yep. And in relation to the same slide again, the 6 million tons per annum boosts the net present value to 1.17 US billion with I think it was an internal rate of return of 28%. What additional capital and operational challenges do you foresee in scaling from 3 million tons per annum to 6 million tons per annum?
Well, really, the largest piece in scaling, will really come down to ensuring that the market can meet that need. That is one of the pieces. But again, in terms of scaling, we have the same risks in terms of what we've got there for the 3 million tons. And it will really come down to ensuring that we can get the financing and support to really move to that second scenario. And I'll give you an example there, Harry, is that you can see the huge upside there for going to that 6 million ton per annum. And part of the reason for us looking at a strategic partner to come in is there's potentially the opportunity to bring that strategic partner in where we can move directly through to that 6 million tons. So sharing some of that additional risk and also about really fast tracking that project by having that additional strategic investor come in will only benefit our shareholders, which is why we are seeking to bring in a strategic partner. So number one, it's also non-dilutive, but also so we can rapidly advance and move to like that 6 million tonne per annum scenario. But that 3 million tonne is really something for our size and our market cap that we believe we can do today. And it is a sensible thing to do, is to scale it. But I want to come back. The huge upside potential of this project is obviously its size and scale. That first scenario is only 2.4% of the overall resource. So we've got a huge resource. And so we want to scale this sensibly, but if we bring the right partner in, we could probably move that quicker.
Okay, and by that partner, you said it was the Bank of Montreal, right?
Correct. Our strategic advisors are the Bank of Montreal, and right now we've engaged them as our advisors, and we're running the process with the Bank of Montreal to bring in that strategic advisor. The strategic investor. But again, I just want to point out, we don't need to bring in anybody else to make this project a success. We are focused on moving it forward within American Rare Earths, but at the same time, we feel there's the opportunity to create more value if we bring in the right partner. And that's what we're seeking to do. So if we can bring in the right partner that helps us de-risk the project, helps us advance this at a much rapid pace, and we do this in a non-dilutive manner and creates more value for our shareholders, then that's what we're going to do.
Yeah, precisely. Okay. And with only 2.4% of the 2.63 billion tonne JORC resource included in the 20-year plan, what is the long-term vision for further scaling beyond the 6 million tonnes per annum sort of goal?
Well, right now, what we've got, as you rightly pointed out, we've got more than sufficient mine life here for the next 20 years at that, even at the 6 million tonne. And if you then look at the overall resource, we've got the 2.63 billion tonnes. So our longer term plan obviously is to meet the future needs into the future, but I think we've got more than enough right now to really focus on what we've got here within this state section. And that's our core focus. We haven't made any decisions or commitments to go beyond that, but there is that upside opportunity. Harry, as I outlined at the outset, that this you have a resource here that can be scalable. It can and does have the resource in the ground that can potentially compete and be that next major powerhouse in the rare earth space. And if you're asking me my personal long-term vision, here is to build a rare earth company that is the next Lynas, is the next MP Materials. And I believe the Halleck Creek Project has that potential. Yeah,
absolutely. Okay. Now, you'd know better than me, but the neodymium spot price at the moment I believe, is roughly $70 a kilo. Would that be a fair assumption?
In terms of this is part of the challenge in the rare earth space is that what's called the spot price is actually determined a little bit by the Chinese.
Right.
But it is some of the spot prices are estimated in between that $60 to $70 a kilogram US.
Okay.
So that's sort of the spot price. And just for clarity, in our scoping study, I assume that's probably your next question. We utilized the long-term pricing that was again from our advisors, including BMO, have really indicated that the long-term pricing is around that $80 to $90 mark, which is why we didn't change the pricing in our updated scoping study, because that is still some of the long-term projections. And when you look at our sensitivities as well, Harry, in our scoping study, this project makes money even down into the $50. In fact, for NdPr, our break even is $36. So this project is very robust and at the lower well, really at the lower spot prices. But when you look at the long term, well, really the longer term market prices, this project does extremely well. And obviously, if you scale this even further, it could even have greater economics.
Yeah. Okay. And as you said, given China's history of price suppression, how does ARR plan to compete if neodymium prices don't reach the required profitability threshold of $80 to $100 a kilo?
Well, as I said, Harry, we our break even is for NdPr is $36 a kilo. So
yep.
all projects have a point where they no longer prove economical, but we're well off from where that is at. And I think one of the huge advantages we've got for this project is that it is located in the United States. The United States is the largest economy in the world that has one of the largest problems, which is where to source these materials. And right now we've got a massive resource in the ground. We're proving out that we can extract that economically and on a fast track, which can even be moved quicker if we get even more weight of the government behind this. And being in the United States, it's also not subject to the tariffs from within the country as well.
Of course.
But we, the big point here is those sensitivities are in the scoping study and will no doubt be in our pre-feasibility study as well. But this project makes very good money at the 3 million tonne per annum scenario. But as you continue to scale this, we believe it will make exceptional money. And again, being US based is the biggest advantage we have, and that will flow through as well through to other supply chain costs.
Yeah. Are there plans to lock in premium pricing with US or allied buyers, such as defense contractors, or to offset potential market volatility? Has that been something the business is considering?
Yes, it is something we've been considering, and just for clarity, it had not been a primary focus as we have been really proving out the initial phases for this project. I've deliberately shied away from entering into offtake agreements too early. We have commenced some discussions with potential offtake partners, and that is also part of the remit as well for BMO with the process we're running, because one of the strategic partners is opportunities is to bring in somebody at a major offtake partner who also wants to secure some of that supply for an investment at the project level. So that's something we're pursuing there. But we've also commenced some discussions with other potential offtake partners as well. Now, those offtake partners are both within the United States and also external to the United States, but within allied countries such as Japan, Europe, and in Europe, I'm really referring to there within Germany and also the UK. So that they are activities, and we'll hear more about that as we go forward into the future, Harry.
Okay. A couple of questions in the Q&A. We'll start with this one. What are the upcoming drilling plans at Halleck and La Paz in 2025? I think you've covered most of it, but...
Yeah, in terms of Halleck Creek, we completed a large drill campaign towards the end of last year where we upgraded the resource. Right now, we actually have a team on the ground where we're also doing some field sampling, and we will also be looking at what we can do around some channel sampling here into the for this year. But we don't have any plans for any further drilling at this stage at Halleck Creek. We've got more than sufficient resources for our PFS. And when it comes to La Paz, I don't have any plans for drilling at La Paz for this year. Our primary focus is to deliver on this PFS, deliver on progressing the permitting, and also for us to seek to fast track this demonstration plant, and at the same time continue proving out the metallurgy for this project. So there's a lot of news flow and a lot of activity happening over the next, in 2025.
Perfect. Another question in the chat. Based on the resource size, ARR should be very dominant. How is ARR preparing for challenges that lie ahead to reach that sort of leadership position in the market?
Hey, that's a great question, and I also believe that, and that's my goal, is to establish this as that next major rare earth company. So as we continue to move forward, we will continue to look at our internal resources, ensuring we've got the right internal resources to deliver. But one of those key pieces, as I outlined earlier, is that we are seeking to, if we bring in that right strategic partner, that will also help de-risk, and the right partner will also bring more to the table other than just cash. And so that's why I see that process is key for us to bring in the right people can really help us advance this at a much quicker stage, but also bring in some of those additional resources. So as a company at our size, we are also seeking obviously to balance our spend, but we are continually looking at what we do to improve the resources, both internally in terms of our capability to deliver. And right now, I believe we've got a great team on the ground in the United States. We utilize a number of consultants from the Stantec's of the world, the Tetra Techs, the Woods of the world, and other consulting groups. But we'll continue to grow the company at the appropriate time and bring in the right resources as they see fit.
Now, a pretty common question, I had one from a registrant prior to the webinar and also one in the chat here now, and it's around, we hear a lot from the US at the moment. The government, they want rare earths from Ukraine and Greenland. How is ARR trying to position themselves to be known by the government and to be, I guess, seen as that the primary producer and primary sort of port of call for rare earths in America? And I'll link this to a question that I just had in the chat. If there was to be a private partnership with the government, what might that look like? It's obviously a hypothetical, but is that something that has been considered within the business, or not so much?
I don't know if the government is going out from a private partnership perspective, but we are looking at and have people on the ground, both at the state and the federal level, in terms of ensuring we're at the forefront of some of these discussions and being engaged with the right people. Harry, as I outlined, we've got this great project. Fortunately, we are on state lands, so we don't need, or we're not dependent on the federal permitting reform, which is a huge advantage for us. But right now, what we're seeking to ensure that we are front and center on is some of those discussions and being part of the conversation, would I say, so that we are in that mix. And we're reviewing what we can do also from a funding perspective. We've already got some of the initial EXIM Bank letter of interest, and we'll continue to move through that process with the EXIM Bank. But we are looking at what comes out of this executive order and ensuring that we're well positioned. And so we've got people on the ground, not only in the state of Wyoming, but also folks with connections through into Washington. And that's a focus for us right now. Now, there's a lot going on, as you know, in the United States right now, and things are moving at a clip. And so that's why it's important that we're seen in that mix. And if I just give a recent example there, Harry, if folks haven't seen it, if you go, we're very well connected through the National Mining Association. And if you see, they recently came out with an article there where American Rare Earths is mentioned alongside other major companies such as Rio Tinto. And so our name is out there. Harry. Yeah, we're not just a new player coming into the United States. We've been here for some time. We do have a presence, and that's why I think it's important that our shareholders recognise that. And another little point to note, but in 2024, just in terms of some of the interest we've had out of the US, we were the third largest traded stock on the OTC markets in 2024, which highlights that American Rare Earths is getting mentioned. People are aware of who we're at, and so more to come on that, Harry.
Very good. Very good, Chris. Well, look, I think that's all my questions done and dusted. I think we've covered most of the questions in the Q&A as well. I'm certainly very excited to see how American Rare Earths develops, the projects develop, and how the business grows over the short term and the long term. So definitely one, from my perspective, to keep an eye on. And thank you so much for coming on board for this morning, for your time on behalf of myself and Sharewise. And I'd be very, very eager and keen to have another webinar in the future to see how it's all tracking.
Thank you, Harry. Appreciate the opportunity, and thank you to our shareholders for your questions, and we'll continue to keep you informed of it. It's an exciting time for American Rare Earths, an exciting time for what's happening in this space, and we're well positioned. Back, I believe we've got the right project, we're in the right location at the right time and the right commodity. So thank you, Harry.
Thank you very much. Cheers for everyone that attended as well. Thank you.